Welcome to Beyond the Build, the podcast where we go beyond the construction site and discuss the people, policies, and economic initiatives that shape our industry and communities. This show is produced in partnership with Associated Builders and Contractors North Florida and Florida Construction News. I'm your host, Kelvin Enfinger, and today we are continuing our conversation about something that sits right at the intersection of economic development and construction. The work happening across Northwest Florida to attract industry, create jobs, and build stronger communities. Today, I'm joined by Becca Hardin, President of the Bay Economic Development Alliance. Becca has been leading economic development efforts in Bay County for over a decade. She was named President of the Bay Economic Development Alliance in 2015, after joining the organization as Senior Vice President and then serving briefly as Interim President. Before coming to Bay County, Becca built more than 14 years of economic development experience in Columbus, Georgia, including 13 years as Executive Vice President of the Greater Columbus, Georgia Chamber of Commerce, where she helped lead initiatives focused on business recruitment, investment, and job creation. Since taking the helm at Bay EDA, Becca has been deeply involved in promoting Bay County as a destination for business investment, helping connect industry with workforce and infrastructure, and working with partners across the region to bring high-wage job opportunities and long-term economic growth to the community. She has often said that Bay County has incredible assets to market, and her work has focused on helping unlock the full potential of the region by bringing together public and private partners to support smart, strategic growth. Becca, welcome to Beyond the Build. I'm really glad you could join us today.
Thank you, Kelvin. It's an honor to be asked to participate, and I'm really excited about the energy that we have going on in Northwest Florida.
Becca, before we jump into some of the bigger economic development topics, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background and what originally drew you into the world of economic development.
Well, it is one of those stories that I guess I couldn't keep a job when I was younger. I have a degree from Troy State University, broadcast journalism and public relations, and I got my first job out of college at a CBS affiliate, WRBL in Columbus, Georgia, and I was a beat reporter and weekend anchor by the time I finished my career there, and didn't really plan on staying there, didn't know people. I'm originally from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I always thought I would, in my broadcasting career, get back to Birmingham. And, life throws you curveballs, and it's a good thing. My husband's family is from the Columbus, Georgia area. They had a family business there. My husband asked me to marry him, and decided that I needed to venture out and get a job that paid me real money so I didn't have to work crazy hours and every weekend and every holiday. And I actually worked in the corporate world for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Georgia in corporate training and human resource management for 9 years. And that was a great opportunity for me. But I was on the road a lot, and my children at the time were small. So I'd remembered interviewing the president of the Columbus Chamber when I was at the TV station, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, man, I need a job that keeps me in Columbus." And I said, "Do you have anything at the chamber that's open?" And he said, "Well, I've got a project management job in economic development. Would you be interested in that?" And I was like, "Maybe. I have no idea what that does." And he explained it to me, and I said, "Well, yeah, give it a try." And I went from traveling from Columbus to Atlanta a couple times a week to traveling all over the world and marketing the assets of the Columbus, Georgia area. And really did some neat projects. I was on Governor Sonny Perdue's team when we recruited Kia Motors to West Point, Georgia, and worked the whole supply chain network. I was in Seoul, South Korea 4 times in 1 year. So that was an exciting project to work. We also recruited NCR, National Cash Register. We recruited the manufacturing piece in Columbus, Georgia. And a big retention project that we worked is with Pratt & Whitney, which is now part of Raytheon. I helped them get some state money for a couple of jet engine test cells, and they now have probably close to 2,000 employees in Georgia. But it was because of my experience in the aviation world. Pratt & Whitney really taught me how to do international aviation shows. It was because of that background that I was recruited to come to Bay County, Florida, and really focus on aviation development and recruitment at our airport. which is only 15 years old, and we've got close to 4,000 developable acres around that airport. And in the years that I've been here, there's been a conscious effort to really focus on maintenance, repair, and overhaul and aircraft parts manufacturing. And I'm proud to say that our efforts are paying off, and we hope to have at least 2 projects under construction at the airport this year.
It took me back a few years. I was working in and around North Alabama, North Georgia when Kia first came to Georgia. And what an impressive project that brought a lot of support and ancillary facilities alongside of it to support what Kia was assembling there in that county. So I want to talk about Columbus, Georgia for just a minute. I know that Columbus, throughout the years, from an economic development standpoint, has had some ups and downs, and certainly came through a period of time to where Columbus, like a lot of small communities in every state in America, maybe just didn't have appeal, but certainly saw some revitalization. And doing some reading, if I'm not wrong, there was a little bit of a strong sense of NIMBYism, I guess, in the Columbus area that fought against some of the change to bring Columbus back to what it is today. What changed in Columbus to overcome the NIMBYism sentiment and what was being fought against there, just to bring better opportunity to that part of Georgia?
Well, when I was there, certainly it's changed in the 12 years I've been gone, but we were fortunate that we had a great corporate leadership team at that time. AFLAC, which is still headquartered there, was, the international headquarters of AFLAC is there. Synovus, Total System Services, which is TSYS, both headquartered there in W.C. Bradley. And there was a lot of corporate leadership coming out of those basically homegrown companies that helped us focus on really getting in front of prospects and getting them interested in Columbus, Georgia. But I can say, aside from industrial economic development like I was involved in, the biggest thing that Columbus did when I was there to really turn the downtown area around is they moved different schools like the art school and theater school at Columbus State University. They actually moved those to the downtown area, and it really created a renaissance of revitalization of the downtown area. And you go there now, and it's really a focal point of Columbus, Georgia. So we believed in it so much that when my husband and I lived there, we actually opened a yogurt shop on Broadway in Columbus. It's still there, and it's doing very well. But that was, to me, one of the greatest success stories in revitalization of the downtown area of Columbus. But we were fortunate that we had strong leaders that had great connections at the state and federal level, and that helped us bring the appropriate people to the table to attract companies.
Appreciate you sharing that. We see a little bit of that in Northwest Florida in some of our smaller communities, and I think it's just important for people to hear those success stories of where communities come together and worked with business and community leaders to revitalize. But I appreciate you sharing your story as well. I love a good success story of someone who just started out in a completely different career and landed in success of where you are today. So I want to just go right into Bay County. Bay County has been through a lot over the past years. Hurricane Michael, the rebuilding effort, and now to the next phase of growth. So from your perspective, I'm just curious to know, what is the current economic outlook for Bay County right now?
It's very bright. It's very bright. And you can look at some of the companies who've made decisions to locate here. And I'll go through some of those as we have our conversation. But you brought up the hurricane. I can't even tell your audience how bad that was. I mean, it was a Category 5 hurricane. The eye of the storm went straight over Tyndall Air Force Base, and every building at the base was damaged. We were afraid that the federal government would take the opportunity to brack that base, close it, because of so much damage. But we were very fortunate in that we had leaders in Congress who really fought to keep that base open. Not only did they keep it open, they allocated $6 billion to rebuild Tyndall as the base of the future. And as a result of that, we are receiving 3 F-35 squadrons, which equates to 78 aircraft and about 3,000 more servicemen and women. And it really is the technology base of the future. So what could have been an economic catastrophe, not only for our community, but for this region, actually helped create an economic boom that we could grow from and just really ignite our activities. But I'll never forget after the hurricane, our offices, our EDA offices are on the Gulf Coast State College campus, and our office building itself was destroyed. The wind just peeled back the roof on our building like a tuna can, and all the water came in and destroyed all of our documents, computers, everything. And we were homeless for a while, and the St. Joe Company, which is a very, very involved philanthropic community partner. The CEO is a good friend of ours, and he was actually my board chair a couple of years before the hurricane hit. And he let us borrow some offices in his office building. I'll never forget, he came in to talk to me one day, and we were still trying to catch our breath after the hurricane, and what are we going to do? And he told me, he said, Becca, we're about to take a 7-year business development plan and condense it into 2 years. And man, he wasn't lying. And if you were in our area at that time, everywhere you looked, you saw a project that St. Joe was doing, whether it was hotel development, housing development, any other kind of retail development. They were putting their money where their mouth was. And it was because of that decision from the St. Joe Company and our strong, strong leadership at the county level and at the city levels. We just put together a united front and showed how resilient we could be to rebuild our community. And as bad as it was, that was right before COVID hit. And actually, COVID gave us a couple of years to kind of catch our breath and really implement some strategic plans to rebuild our community. And when we came back on the backside of COVID, then we already had some of these strategic plans in place, and we were really, really blowing and going. So, we look back at the hurricane and COVID, as bad as those events were, it really gave us a chance to rebuild. The hurricane knocked down structures that probably needed to be knocked down, and now everything has been built back to a stronger code to handle future storms if we have those. I don't think we'll ever have another one like Hurricane Michael. But if you look back, gosh, it's been 8 years since Hurricane Michael, and this area has just really gone through a lot of growth and change. Again, as bad as those events were, we look back and it's like, would we be here today if we had not had those opportunities to go through those challenges?
Truly was an impressive rebuilding process from someone that's in this community and close to it, and be able to go down there and see just how quickly Bay County, especially South Bay County, rebounded. St. Joe certainly being, an integral part of that. I had not actually been over to Tyndall until just last year to see what the rebuilding effort at Tyndall looked like. And I mean, how impressive is that? I mean, talking about a comeback.
It's been wonderful. As a matter of fact, we had some prospects in town last week that do a lot of defense work, and we took them over to Tyndall, and still construction going on, and it's you can feel the energy of what they're bringing to that base.
We'll talk a little bit about the talent pipeline from military members that are exiting the military, retiring on down through this podcast a little bit. But right now, what industries do you think are driving the most growth in Bay County? I mean, there's kind of a diverse community, and Bay County has a lot of different assets. But you all have seen a lot of new companies coming into Bay County, even as is most recent. But what in your words, what is driving the most growth right now?
Well, we have certain target markets. When I came to Bay County, we, as a leadership team, sat down and said, what's going to make sense for us? Where are we going to have the most success, and what can grow, and what can we build in this community? And we made a conscious effort at that time. And it was interesting because I was new, the president of the college was new, the president of Florida State University, Panama City, was new, the county manager was new, Haney Technical College had some new leadership. So we were all kind of beginning at the same time. And so it was really an opportunity for us to start fresh and say, what do we want to become? And we made a conscious effort not to swing for the home runs. The home runs are nice, getting a Kia Motors, getting an automotive OEM is nice, but it really didn't make sense for us from a community standpoint. So we started swinging for the singles and doubles, 100 jobs, 10 million CapEx, and that was our sweet spot. And then we started having success, and that success led to more successes. And I'm telling you, we're getting international and domestic attention with the projects that we've been successful in bringing in. But you asked about our target markets. They're in line with Florida Commerce, our state of Florida partner, also with Florida's Great Northwest. I know you've had Jennifer Conley on your show. And we all have a very close working partnership and network to be able to recruit in certain target markets. What makes sense for us in Bay County and really along the Panhandle area is aviation. And a lot of that has to do with Florida. The state of Florida is the number one aviation marketing attraction for aviation companies. And with Airbus being in Mobile, Alabama, so close to the Panhandle, we are constantly talking to Airbus suppliers that need to be in the area, but they don't have to necessarily be in Mobile. So we are competitive in recruiting tier one and tier two Airbus suppliers. Aviation is very important for us because we have so much property around our airport. And right now, we've got several projects that will be under construction this year. We're out of developable property. We are working steadily to create shovel-ready sites that's permitted and has access to the infrastructure. And that's part of our strategic planning to continue to have sites available at our airport. And, another thing that's a very strong focus for us is that Bay County is surrounded by water, whether it be our bay system or the Gulf of Mexico. We were sitting around thinking one day, it's like, why don't we get into the marine industry? And so we started going to the Miami Boat Show and developing some relationships with marine manufacturers and really started getting some traction there. We already had Mercury Marine and their research operation here in Bay County and had several different centric companies, but we were first successful in recruiting Suzuki Motor Marine. They built their research and integration center here so they could test their engines in our Bay system. And it's a state-of-the-art research center right here in Bay County. There's only 2 in the world for Suzuki. The other one's in Tokyo, Japan. So we truly are an international company supporting Suzuki. And then Makama Marine came along, 105 jobs, and they manufacture action craft and Southwind deck boats. And then most recently, we were able to announce that Voltari Electric, a Canadian company, is expanding manufacturing operations here. 300 jobs, $40 million capital investment, and they manufacture an electric motored boat on a carbon fiber hull. So they're bringing all of their research and development, their battery manufacturing, and their boat manufacturing right here to Bay County, and this will be their U.S. headquarters.
The aviation expansion across Northwest Florida has it's been phenomenal and certainly refreshing from someone in the business community to see the job creation and the opportunities that I believe will just continue to come from that across Northwest Florida. But now seeing the maritime expansion happening both at the Port of Panama City, Port of Pensacola, Chris and I talked about that the other day. It's a whole new industry and a whole new world that we're now being introduced to. And it's almost like a revitalization of two ports and 2 communities in the maritime world. Talk a little bit about the maritime prosperity zones and what that could potentially mean for our region or just specifically Bay County.
Well, and I know Jennifer referenced this. Last week, we had Lindsay Klein, who is with the Maritime Industrial Board for the Southeast. She was in town, and she actually met with the executive team from Voltari, the Canadian company. And she said that her Maritime Board is looking at Northwest Florida as the Silicon Valley of the marine industry. And that's a pretty strong statement. We all wrote that down because we wanted to be able to use that in our recruitment efforts. And really, she's right. And Chris Platay and I work closely together, even though we all compete, but we all work closely together in this region. And with the project that he's got coming to his port and with the marine traction that we're getting in Bay County, it's just going to give us assets and opportunities to recruit more marine-centric industry. I will say that since we've announced the Voltari project, we have been written up in marine trade magazines domestically and internationally. We've had people reach out to us directly, specifically in the electric world and the battery manufacturing world, that want to be close to Valtari and their cutting edge technology. So that marketing and communication on that project has really garnered us a lot of international attention. And, we're going to capitalize that on bringing a lot of people into Bay County and showing them our assets.
It's a really interesting industry in the sense of when you look at Pensacola, you've got sailing, you've got potential shipbuilding. In Bay County, it's, engine manufacturing, electric boats. There's so much to that industry that we've now been exposed to. And then when you begin to think about it, it's just endless opportunities for the maritime industry. And obviously we have a lot of waterfront to offer along Northwest Florida. So it's one advantage that we have over other regions. But outside of the obvious, and I like to ask this question, what advantages do you think our region have over other areas in the U.S. competing for projects?
Well, before we go and change gears real quick, let me just say one thing about the marine industry and we can move on. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the growth of Eastern Shipbuilding, which is a family-owned, homegrown company that has been tremendously successful here. They have over 1,000 employees, and as a result of what Eastern Shipbuilding has built in this region, we have supercharged our welding program at Haney Technical College to be able to meet their workforce needs. And they are continuing to get new opportunities to build ships, not just boats, but ships in the Bay County area. So we really love the fact that Eastern Shipbuilding is here and has helped us really have the groundwork for this marine industry. But going to your next question, you asked me what sets us apart in this region. Without a doubt, we wouldn't be getting looks from a lot of these companies if it weren't for Triumph Gulf Coast. And Triumph Gulf Coast is part of the BP oil spill settlement fund that was settled with the state of Florida. And the governor and his cabinet appointed a board of private businessmen and women to effectively administer a fund of $1.2 billion with a B to help diversify the economy in Northwest Florida. There are 8 counties that qualify for grant monies out of this fund, and Bay County is one of them. But for all the projects that we've announced in the past 3 years, 99% of them have been leveraged using Triumph money. And without that fund, it would be very, very difficult for us to compete in some of these major projects that we're seeing. People that live here and people that know Florida know that Florida is a very diverse state. The Panhandle is very different from the Jacksonville area, different from the Orlando area, different from the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. And when we compete for economic development projects, we compete with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Carolinas. And if you don't have tools to be competitive in those areas, you're not going to win projects. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, when we were in Georgia was extremely aggressive in putting millions and millions of dollars on the table. And the Triumph Fund has helped us compete and stay in the game in a very transformational way.
Triumph was certainly a blessing through a disaster, something that, the BP oil spill was very detrimental to our communities, to our tourism for a period of time. But what a fantastic way to come through such a tough time as it was, to be able to have the funds that are being administered through Triumph and just the projects that it's connected to made such a huge impact on our region, from job growth and just changing the landscape of our communities for the better and for many generations to come when you think about opportunity and job availability for both our kids and grandkids and generations beyond that. Before we move into, I want to talk a little bit about site selection and what companies are looking for. But before we move into that, I feel like somebody just wants to know this. So we think about Bay County rebuilding. No hope for MTV and Club La Vela coming back. It's the only joke I got. I'm sorry.
No, as a matter of fact, they're building I guess it's a country nightclub on that site in Panama City Beach, Tootsie's, which has live music and bands on the weekends, will be opening there soon, and they're under construction. But we, unfortunately or fortunately, had to put in measures to basically kill spring break in Panama City Beach. It got out of hand.
I said that jokingly. I assume for the locals of Bay County and specifically the Panama City area, there has to be some sense of just feeling refreshed, that knowing that spring break is not coming to their backyard. So one thing that many people just don't realize is how competitive site selection can be. And, we've talked about this already a little bit, but communities across the country are competing sometimes for the same companies and the same investment. What is one thing that you hear from companies when you're interviewing with them and talking with them? Maybe it's one thing specifically that every company is looking for that might set us apart.
Speed to market. You've got to do business at the speed of business and not the speed of bureaucracy. Everything is about how you can get this company up and running quickly. When we have buildings that are available in our inventory, they don't stay available very long. So a lot of the sites that we market are greenfield sites. So you've got to have shovel-ready certified sites, and we have those. Our port owns an intermodal distribution center, industrial park that we've worked very closely with Florida Power and Light and a site selection consultant to get a 52-acre site certified and a 30-acre site certified that we market. So what does that mean? It means that it's ready for accelerated construction. You know what it means because you're in that world. But the sites are cleared. They've been mitigated. They have regional stormwater in place. They have all permits, all zoning, everything that you need to get a shovel in the ground as soon as you get a deal worked out with the company. And that's always our challenge, is to continue to look for pockets of property, whether it be airport or port related, that we can get certified shovel ready so that we're not telling a prospect or a president of a company, sorry, you're going to have to wait 2 to 3 years to get this site ready, because they won't wait. They're like, well, that's a shame. I'm going to have to go somewhere else. So as a leadership team, we're always pushing for infrastructure development. We have the certified sites at the Intermodal Distribution Center, and we have certified sites at the St. Joe Venture Crossings Park at the airport campus. And so those are shovel-ready sites that we market very, very frequently. And then we're working with the airport authority and the airport leadership to get sites ready at the airport so that we have a seamless development as these companies come in and build at our airport and at our port properties.
So as we think about site readiness, you want to talk a little bit about inventory right now in Bay County and what Bay County has available ready for new investment, new opportunity?
Well, we have one 100,000 square foot building that is available that we show at least once a week. It is owned by a private developer, so it makes it a little more challenging to figure out how to get Triumph involved in that formula. And then we have sites at the Intermodal Distribution Center that the Port Authority manages and owns. Those sites are reserved for projects that use rail, because we have rail to the port at that park, and or use the port. So we're pretty limited as to the types of projects we can put in, we can recruit for the Intermodal Distribution Center. We have Venture Crossings, which is a Class A business park owned by the St. Joe Company that we put Central Maloney Incorporated in a couple of years ago, an existing building, 200 jobs, about $25 million capital investment. And they're in that park along with a couple of other local companies that expanded in that park. We have a little over 200 acres of certified site in Venture Crossings. And then, of course, we're working to get sites ready around the airport runway. We have a 10,000-foot runway, expandable to 12 at the airport. So it's a very attractive airport because of the assets that we have. And we get a lot of attention. And we travel around the world attending domestic and international aircraft shows and marketing that airport around the world.
One thing I want to talk about while we're on this topic of what companies are looking for, you've hit site readiness, the importance of having the infrastructure there, and the speed to market. One topic that has come up in just about every conversation I've had recently as it pertains to EDA. We know that you can have the land, the infrastructure, all the incentives, but if companies don't believe the workforce is there, it's just about impossible to close the deal, right? What are you hearing from companies right now about workforce availability in Bay County?
Well, I've been in economic development world for close to 25 years now. And when I first got into this field, the number one question that you always heard from a company is, how much money are you going to give me? And that's not the question anymore. That's not the top question. The top question is, how can you fill my workforce need? And we're very fortunate in this part of Florida in that we have 6 military bases from Bay County. Bay County has 2, Air Force Base and a Navy base. All the way to Pensacola, there's 6 military bases. Working with Florida's Great Northwest and the University of West Florida, a new survey has just been conducted, and it was discovered that each year out of those military bases, we have 5,200 men and women that retire at a relatively young age, 38, 40 years old. And because we live in paradise, it's incumbent upon us to find jobs for them to stay in paradise. So that in itself is a great workforce pool to pull from. These servicemen and women have a great work ethic. They know how to come to work on time. They don't stay out and play all the time. They come to work and they do their job. And they have skill sets that we need, whether it be in engineering or aviation mechanic work. It's a pool that is ready to get to work very quickly. I think that it's something that is very marketable in our area. For Bay County specifically, we've always been successful in being able to answer that workforce question. But right after the hurricane, the second question came, okay, well, you can meet my workforce need, but where are they going to live? Because all the workforce housing had been damaged in the hurricane. And so it took us a couple of years. Field now we're able to answer that workforce question and the livability a little bit better. As more housing comes online, the price points are coming down. They're becoming more stabilized. And we're just having an explosion of growth in the residential development areas. While it was a challenge for us to answer that housing question for a couple of years, it's definitely stabilizing in the market at this time.
Rooftops are refreshing to see because every community, I think in Northwest Florida, as we've seen job growth, we've seen the obstacle of housing. And some communities are doing a better job than others of developing that workforce housing. And so seeing what you all have got going on over in Bay County has been refreshing to see, knowing that Bay is creating that opportunity not only for the jobs, but the rooftop support of the jobs that are being created, not only for the workforce that may be coming out of military housing or some that are moving into the area, but also an opportunity for a young man or woman that might be, one of my kids' generation or my grandkids' generation to be able to find a job and actually live in the county where they're working. And that's something that we've lacked for many, many years. I appreciate what you said regarding the military workforce. I've seen so many new programs in Northwest Florida over the past few years that have come up that are programs specifically geared towards finding gainful employment for our retired military members that are looking to stay in the community. That is a great way to be able to fill the void of what we have in our workforce, not only locally, but across the U.S. Us in construction, we're battling at 360,000 workers needed right now in the U.S., just in the construction industry alone. So seeing the conversations happening in our communities and the programs, it certainly seems to be at least some light at the end of the tunnel for something for us to set our sights on, to be able to work together collaboratively as a community to fix a problem. But as we continue to think about economic development, construction is an integral part of that, right? You got to have somebody to build the facilities, build the infrastructure to support that growth. From your perspective, what are the challenges in the construction industry right now? Are you seeing any construction capacity or supply chain issues going on over in Bay County? There's been a ton of conversations about tariffs, right? And how tariffs are affecting the construction industry and price escalation and availability of workforce in construction. Is the industry able to keep up with what's happening in Bay County right now?
Well, in full transparency, the uncertainty and ambiguity around the tariffs is really impacting the world economy.
Kind of day to day. You just
Day
don't
to day.
really know.
It's just, we have relationships around the world, and one of our sister cities is the city of Merida in the Yucatan of Mexico. and the Port of Progreso is our sister port. And we talk to companies in Merida, all the time about opening warehouse operations in this area to help ease the flow of product going to their customers. And the message that I've been getting all this year is, we're not making any decisions. We can't do anything until we know what the future is going to look like as far as tariffs. One of the projects that we announced this year is Global Impact Products, which is a company that is expanding here, 150 jobs and 14.5 million capital investment. They manufacture hurricane-resistant windows and doors, and they already been utilizing our port to bring glass in to make their windows, but we were trucking it down to Pompano Beach, and now we found them a building here in Bay County, and they're expanding here. And they told us at the beginning of our recruitment negotiations, it's like, the uncertainty with the tariffs has our business in flux because we already have signed contracts for the raw materials to make our product. So we're the ones paying the tariffs. And they can't pass the cost on to the main producer because they've already got contracts in place. The ambiguity affects companies differently. Mexico is especially being impacted. That's just one example of how I've experienced the ambiguity of the tariffs affecting the global economy. I recently went to London for a maintenance, repair, and overhaul aviation show, and in the fall met with many companies that really needed to enhance their presence in the U.S. And again, these European companies were like, we can't make a move until we know what the future looks like for us. So it's frustrating from that standpoint, and that wish that there was something, either in place or we're not going to do it. But the ambiguity is what's causing so many delays.
I believe every industry right now is feeling the effects a little bit of the uncertainty of what's happening with the global market and tariffs and just what's happening in politics in general. But to keep you and I safe, I'm going to stay off of political conversations, and we're going to just keep moving right along and talking about local opportunities and challenges. And we know that every community and every region has both those opportunities and challenges when it comes to growth. Just want to hear from you. What opportunity are you most excited about right now in Bay County?
Well, obviously everything that we've got going on at our airport and aviation related. I can just give you a little peek under the tent. Hopefully within the next couple of months, certainly during this year, we're going to be breaking ground on IAG Aero Group, which is a jet engine maintenance company that works on jet engines for Pratt & Whitney, General Electric, Boeing, just to name a few. They have committed to creating 500 jobs in Bay County, which is a tremendous project. $107 million capital investment. They've already purchased an existing 140,000 square foot facility in Lynn Haven, Florida, in Bay County, and they're using that for parts warehousing and some maintenance work. And they've already got about 40 employees at that operation. And we're in the process of putting together a request for a proposal that will be put out on the street from the airport authority for 120,000 square foot maintenance facility at our airport. It'll eventually be connected to the runway in some capacity. And then the company has committed to building a $75 million jet engine test cell at the airport, which if you ever get a company to build a test cell in your community, they're not going anywhere. I mean, that's a substantial piece of equipment. They have future plans to build a second test cell and 2 wide-body hangars. So that's a monster project for us at ECP and at our airport and at our community. Also at the airport, we hope to be breaking ground soon on a Canadian maintenance, repair, and overhaul company, Premier Aviation, 250 jobs and about $35 million capital investment. They do a lot of work for Embraer, and Embraer has a large presence already in Florida, so they've been instrumental in getting them to look at sites in Florida, and we're getting close to being able to come up with some solutions to break ground on that project very soon. And then as far as shovel-ready sites, we just recruited a fixed-based operator that went on one of our shovel-ready sites, Southern Sky Aviation. Once those projects get under construction, we're out of developable property, sort of shovel-ready sites. So we've focus our direction on strategic planning to get more sites ready at the airport.
Airport recently went through a terminal expansion, right?
They're undergoing, yes, but they're undergoing a massive one right now, and $100 million expansion. And they're adding 80,000 square feet, and it'll be 3 new gates. It's a monster project.
Very nice. All right, so we've talked about what you're excited about. What is the biggest challenge you see ahead for Bay County right now?
Just finding property, getting sites ready. We've really, I tell people, we've really got some great momentum going on now, and we want to stay on the crest of the wave as long as we can. And the only way to do that is to continue to have product on your shelf. And, we are constantly looking for properties near the intermodal distribution center for future development opportunities, and then developing sites at the airport. So that, from a time standpoint, that is something that is challenging to us, time and money, but it is a focus for the leadership team, and I'm confident that we're going to be in a good position to continue to be competitive.
Got to put you on the spot one more time. In your words, what do you think Bay County could look like in 5 to 10 years from now if things continue?
You're not going to recognize Bay County in 5 to 10 years, even as you ride around now. And it's not just what we're working on, it's what's going on from a development standpoint. There are construction projects going on everywhere. I mean, we haven't even talked about our new hospital, FSU Health, that is a joint venture project with the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, Florida State University, and the St. Joe Company. That's under construction as we speak on Highway 79. Within the next year and a half, and that adds a whole new dynamic. The growth of Margaritaville near our airport campus has been instrumental, and that will continue to grow. That is part of their 50-year West Bay sector plan. And they have, over the next 50-year period, which is actually 45 now, they have entitlements for more than 100,000 homes. The population in Bay County right now is just at right under 200,000. So you're looking at, just with what St. Joe's got planned, at least doubling the population in the next 30 years. But we've had economists come and report on our area, and they said that within the next 5 years, we're going to see an increase in population of 35,000 people.
What you've done in Bay County is impressive. You and your team continue to admire what you guys have got going on over there.
Thank you.
It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. Economic development is one of those things that often happens behind the scenes, but plays a huge role in shaping the future of our community. So if people want to learn more about Bay Economic Development Alliance, where can they go?
BayEDA.com.
Thank you again for joining us on Beyond the Build. And for those listening, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share it with someone in the industry, and stay tuned for more conversations about the people and ideas shaping the future of construction and economic development.